disgraceful for our country and what we've become, and the fact that this is how we treat immigrants. You know, Border Patrol is their Uber, and San Diego County was their travel agent.
With growing frustration over the country's broken immigration system, President Biden and former President Trump are both planning dueling trips to the southern border this week, visiting on the very same day. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. The two presidential candidates will both visit Texas this Thursday, just a few hundred miles apart from each other, right along the border. Former President Trump will be visiting Eagle Pass, while President Biden will head to Brownsville. President Biden is intending to meet with Border Patrol agents and law enforcement officials there on the ground. Aboard Air Force One today, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre laid out some of the president's goals for this visit, his second trip to the border as president.
I don't have a reaction to the former president. I'm not going to speak to his schedule. What I can speak to is this president and what he's trying to do. He wants to make sure that he puts his message out there to the American people. We have said that we were going to take it directly to the American people so they know. There was a deal coming out of the Senate in a bipartisan way that took 4 months. Republicans got in the way because of what Donald Trump told them to do, or told them how to move forward on it.
The White House says it is exploring executive actions the president could take to address the huge influx of migrants at the border. Now, former President Trump is vowing to follow through with mass deportations if he wins back the White House in November. Over the weekend, he laid out what he believes would happen at the border if President Biden were to remain in office another 4 years.
With 4 more years of Biden, the hordes of illegal aliens stampeding across our borders will exceed 40 to 50 million people. Medicare, Social Security, health care, and public education will buckle and collapse.
And the crisis along the border came into clear view near San Diego over the weekend. Border Patrol agents have now dropped off more than 1,500 migrants at the San Ysidro border crossing since Friday. As Fox 5's Zara Barker reports, they're living in places like the airport until they can figure out what to do next.
It's disgraceful for our country and what we've become, and the fact that this is how we treat immigrants.
County Supervisor Jim Desmond says Border Patrol has dropped off more than 1,500 migrants in the last 3 days at just one bus stop in San Ysidro.
You know, Border Patrol is their Uber, and San Diego County was their travel agent.
Over 95% of the people that are being dropped off at that trolley station will not remain in San Diego.
I'm planning to go to New York, but I have no money, nothing. I'm just waiting for someone who can help.
But some migrants have nowhere to go, including Mustafa Mikrati, who says he was on a 2-month, $11,000 journey seeking asylum from religious persecution in Morocco. He says he thought the welcome would be different when he stepped on U.S. soil.
For the moment, I don't think it's really good. For us, it's not really good for the moment. Before, there is some friends before, they told me that was really good. They took hotels and they got food and everything. But when we came this month, no, there was nothing.
Part of the reason is because San Diego's taxpayer-funded $6 million migrant processing center closed last week after running out of money 4.5 months into operation.
At the county, we have begged, we have pleaded, we have asked the federal government to stop dropping off migrants in San Diego County, allow only the number that can be managed.
As people on both sides of the aisle have been fighting for federal help, they also agree the current way many are seeking asylum is not humane.
It's a faster way of first entering into the United States. However, it's a very dangerous way of doing so. And oftentimes it's the only real option that people have.
We've got a legal system in place where people can apply online throughout the world. They can go to an embassy. They can come in with dignity without having to cross through a fence or go through a river or over a fence. And right now, what we're allowing to happen is we're allowing people who just walk across the border to jump ahead of the line. And I don't blame them for doing this. If we're allowing it to happen, you know, why apply legally if you can just jump ahead of the line?
And that was Fox 5's Zara Barker reporting for us tonight. And tonight, the city council in Aurora, Colorado will consider a resolution that could affect migrants. They're deciding whether to accept homeless people from neighboring cities without additional funding. Denver has been sending some migrants over to Aurora as it tries to deal with its own influx of asylum seekers in that city. This resolution seeks to prevent organizations from moving homeless people to Aurora, quote, without an agreement to address the financial impact and coordination of services. A new tiny home community in Washington will help some migrants. The Low Income Housing Institute created the community in Seattle for homeless families and asylum seekers. This community does a lot more than just get people off the streets.
We have a kitchen, community center, laundry, hygiene, and most importantly, case management offices.
And they're working to transform that space into a housing community in the future. The Port of Seattle and Tacoma is laying out a plan that addresses growing concern about Chinese-made cranes posing a security risk. Today, the Northwest Seaport Alliance announced it will not replace any cranes anytime soon. The Biden administration recently announced the U.S. is investing $20 billion in port security and crane manufacturing, as most cranes shipped from China could potentially pose a spying risk. The NWSA says it will continue to monitor new guidelines for Chinese-made container cranes and could make changes depending on new developments. The man accused of violent crimes against women all across the country was back in an Arizona courtroom today. 26-year-old Rod Al-Mansour was denied bond after a bail hearing today. New police body camera video captures Al-Mansour's arrest in a parking garage in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's accused of murdering a mom in a New York City hotel room earlier this month, stabbing a woman during a carjacking in Phoenix last week, and then climbing under the door of a bathroom stall in a McDonald's in Arizona the next day, pointing a gun at a female worker and stabbing her. In Corona, California, the man who shot and killed two teenagers in a movie theater back in 2021 has been sentenced to life in prison without parole. Joseph Jimenez Jr. was convicted of killing 18-year-old Riley Goodrich and 19-year-old Anthony Barajas. The two teenagers were out on a first date when Jimenez shot them in the head in an unprovoked attack. Barajas' mother addressed Jimenez today in court following the sentencing.
You had no regard what your actions would do to my relationship with my son. How your actions would take away the chance for my son to ever be with me or any of his family again.
Jimenez claimed he was suffering from schizophrenia at the time of that shooting and was hearing voices, but the judge in this case disagreed and ruled that he was sane. California Governor Gavin Newsom is facing the threat of another recall effort. This new campaign has been launched by the same group involved in getting a recall on the ballot in 2021. KTVU's political reporter Greg Lee breaks down what makes this recall attempt different.
He's got enough problems here. He was hired to do a job here. He needs to do that job here, or he's going to get fired.
Governor Gavin Newsom is facing another potential recall, the second time in 3 years. Conservative activist group Rescue California said more than 400 proponents have joined the new effort. The group helped collect money and signatures in 2021.
I don't think we can afford to have 3 more budgets with this guy. He has 2 more years. That's what he had the last time we did it.
The group's campaign director, Ann Dunsmore, pointed to new estimates of the state's $73 billion budget deficit and argued Newsom's involvement in national politics is keeping him from his job here. Newsom's a top surrogate for President Biden's campaign and is using money from his super PAC to target Republicans on abortion with out-of-state ads.
And Governor Newsom is an effective spokesperson for Democrats to go on the offensive. This also serves as a distraction, not a distraction that you can ignore. And that's another element here.
Newsom responded quickly to the new recall effort, posting on X, Trump Republicans are launching another wasteful recall campaign to distract us from the existential fight for democracy and reproductive freedom. We will defeat them.
And express themselves so overwhelmingly by rejecting the division, by rejecting the cynicism, by rejecting so much of the negativity that's defined our politics.
In September 2021, voters rejected the recall of Newsom, nearly 62% voting against it. The state Republican Party did not endorse any of the replacement candidates, and when asked about the new effort, wrote this, quote, "The California GOP's attention is on turning out the vote in the primary election and supporting our endorsed candidates who can fix our broken state." The 2021 special election cost the state about $200 million, and Newsom raised nearly $75 million to fight it. One-way experts say this effort could actually make him stronger.
So there were a lot of things that did backfire or had a backlash by the voters in terms of expenses, helped Democrats raise money, brought up the profile of Gavin Newsom.
In order to qualify for the November ballot, recall proponents must gather just under 1.4 million valid signatures by May. Greg Lee, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Up next, weather extremes in parts of the West today, from dangerous fire conditions to snowstorms. We're tracking the forecast as we head through the week.
And giving you a live look here over San Francisco, where a few scattered showers reported this afternoon. I'll have a look at what is going on here for tomorrow as well as the rest of the West coming up.
I had pneumonia. And then things in the fall of 20 just settled down.
Rapid improvement in overall health. One woman credits a clinical trial underway in Arizona for her recovery. Tonight, we'll hear from doctors excited about a device they're convinced is working for heart patients. Actor Alec Baldwin will face trial in July over that fatal shooting that happened on a New Mexico movie set. He's been indicted for involuntary manslaughter after cinematographer Helena Hutchins was shot and killed in 2021. Hutchins was shot as Baldwin rehearsed with a gun. Jury selection for Baldwin's trial has been set for July 9th. The trial is expected to wrap up before the end of that month. A separate trial for the person responsible for storage, maintenance, and handling of firearms on that movie set is underway right now. Today, administrators at a Beverly Hills middle school said their investigation is progressing after several reports of students using artificial intelligence to bully their classmates. Parents at Beverly Vista Middle School got an email last week about images of students that were distorted by AI. The students appeared to be nude with their faces superimposed on AI-generated bodies. In a statement today, administrators said more victims have been identified since last week, and the district is taking every measure to support those affected and to prevent similar cases in the future. Students say they're scared and that everyone is vulnerable.
Girls are being called out one by one, and there's always that fear, like, am I going to be next? Am I going to be called in? There's going to be a naked photo of me presented to the entire world.
The school says it is working with police right now to find whoever is responsible for those fake pictures. The district says any student found to be creating, disseminating, or in possession of AI-generated images could be expelled. Today, the Supreme Court heard arguments on a pair of cases centered around social media and free speech. Specifically, the justices are now weighing whether those platforms can remove objectionable content. KTVU's Tom Vakar explains the huge implications of this upcoming decision.
The ultimate question for the court, what precisely is social media? Is social media a completely open public forum where anyone can post anything without filtering, editing, or restraint? That's what Elon Musk sided with when he wanted to buy Twitter.
I do think that we want to be just very reluctant to delete things.
Or is social media more like a newspaper that can gather and edit any kind of information it chooses?
Sometimes it's based on perhaps opinion, but it's often based on just what they consider to be worthy of putting in their newspaper. It gets into some very dicey issues when it comes to political speech.
That's exactly what social media companies want. In fact, 50 years ago, the Supreme Court ruled that under the Constitution's First Amendment, newspapers can pick and choose their content.
They have the right to delete things that, in their opinion, violates their terms of service for a variety of reasons, maybe because it's racist or hateful, maybe because it's dangerous.
Technically, in a completely open public forum, encouraging suicide, racism, hate, spewing lies, fentanyl use, or overthrow of the legal government may be allowable.
but that doesn't mean that a privately owned company like Meta has to carry them.
We took the question to the streets of Alameda.
I think fact-checking is important, and I think some of the social media companies do that. I also know of a lot of accounts that have gotten banned for very silly reasons, so I'm not sure more control is the better way to do it.
Yeah, I think there should be rules of the road for social media, for anything out there. I see what's going on with these kids and such online and bullying.
Well, absolutely. There's a social responsibility. If you give a platform to be able to spew hate, you're also encouraging the retaliation that comes with it.
Yeah, it's the best thing to do would be to get things, have an open forum and work it through.
With rules.
Yes, with rules.
And make no mistake, this is all about political postings, true, false, or fantasy. Tom Bakar, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Today in Los Angeles, a judge ruled that former FBI informant Alexander Smirnov must remain behind bars while he awaits trial. Smirnov is accused of fabricating a bribery scheme involving the Biden family. He has pleaded not guilty to charges he falsely told his FBI handler that Ukrainian energy company Burisma had paid the Bidens $5 million each as part of a bribe. Today's ruling reverses a previous ruling by a judge that allowed Smirnov to be released on electronic monitoring. All right, some wild swings in the weather across the West today. In Colorado Springs, fire danger prompted a red flag warning that has just expired tonight. Crews were called out to a brush fire on the southeast side of the city this morning. Dry, gusty conditions spread the flames here. Firefighters did get those flames under control just before noon today, and there were no reports of any injuries or damage to buildings here. A much larger fire burning just north of Colorado Springs will keep U.S. Air Force Academy land off limits tomorrow. Cameras captured helicopters dropping water on the fire this afternoon. More than 160 acres of Air Force Academy land has now burned since the fire started yesterday, but crews have stopped the flames from spreading. Tonight it remains unclear how both of those fires started. And a much different situation in Washington today. A winter storm warning for mountain passes has been extended into tomorrow. Drivers encountered snow piling up on the roads in Stevens Pass today. They're being warned about the possibility of more snow and ice tomorrow. For more, let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Rosemary Orozco, who is tracking conditions all across the West tonight. Rosemary?
Yes, Alex, you're right to that advisory for winter travel, not only for the Washington Cascades, the Rockies, but also for the Sierra of California. Giving you a live look, or I should say a look here of Seattle earlier today. 44 degrees the afternoon high in Washington, and all that cloud cover there, in addition to the rain and snow that continues. The satellite and radar, we've got two elements here. We have one system dropping in here to the Pacific Northwest. We also have a system that is moving ashore over Southern California, so scatter showers there as well. But let's start in the north, where again the winter snow has been a big deal. 1 to 2 inches of snowfall falling at times at the higher elevations, and there are advisories for that winter travel that will extend with an even stronger storm coming in later in the week. The winter storm warnings, the shades of white indicating areas of the Pacific Northwest and into areas of Utah. Meanwhile, the winter weather advisory you can see fairly widespread for areas over California and the southern section of Portland, Oregon. We do have scatter showers that will remain through the California's southern half as well as the desert southwest for tonight. But by tomorrow, it's moving out. Here's a look at the Futurecast model into tomorrow morning. Notice the state of California is dry as well as Nevada, and we are looking at this storm continuing to push to the east. Now, you will notice Colorado seeing some snow there. Temperatures are expected to plummet. We do have rain and snow in the mix there, as well as the Pacific Northwest continuing with the wet weather. Here's a look into tomorrow afternoon, where we see it over areas of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and then dropping into Utah as well as Colorado, the areas that had the red flag warning today. In addition to that, temperatures are going to plummet in that area that had the warm, very dry, breezy conditions, although there is a high wind warning that will continue for sections of Colorado as well as New Mexico for tomorrow. Meanwhile, the rest of the West will be shaping up nicely, at least over California, where we will will be dry for the next few days. Northern California in the low 60s. Meanwhile, Southern California enjoying mid to upper 60s. Areas over Arizona in the 70s. We do have wet weather that continues over the Pacific Northwest. Alex?
Okay, Rosemary, thank you. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, more than $500 million up for grabs this week. Tonight, how the current Mega Millions jackpot compares to other big payouts we've seen in the past. And fighting the risk of heart failure. We'll hear from patients and doctors taking part in a clinical trial in Arizona who think they know what's working. There is growing optimism tonight that doctors in Arizona have figured out a new way to prevent a certain type of heart failure that mostly affects women. Fox 10's Dominique Newland shows us what they're doing in a new clinical trial.
Medicine, as we know, keeps advancing. And now, a possible solution for a generally untreatable form of heart failure nicknamed HuffPuff. 60% of patients affected by HuffPuff are women, Janet Lang included.
With that fluid in the lungs, I had pneumonia. And then things in the fall of 20 just settled down.
Things settled down for Lang after being introduced to the clinical trial at the Arizona Arrhythmia Research Center, one of about 60 study sites conducting the trial worldwide.
We implant this device in the intra-atrial septum, which is between the left and the right upper chamber of the heart. And it makes an 8-millimeter hole, which allows decompression of the left atrium.
The device is implanted through an IV with a needle instead of making an incision. Lang says she used to be extremely short of breath, not able to take daily walks. But during the trial's walking test, she started to notice something.
And those first couple of months, I was like, do I have to complete this? Yes, you do. But by about the 6th month, I could just do it like, oh, this is easy. So that told me that something was significant had changed.
Her doctor overjoyed that the trial that first started as a concept now finally becoming a reality.
The intra-atrial shunt device is sort of cutting edge for people with this kind of a problem. And the success of the intra-atrial shunt device is just the beginning. It'll open up new doors for more research, more innovative tools, which will help us in our fight against heart failure.
For Fox 10 News, I'm Dominique Newland.
All right, finally tonight, the Mega Millions jackpot now stands at $563 million, and people are vying for that jackpot all across the West. This is the 8th largest jackpot in history. The lump sum payout after taxes is about $265 million, and the next drawing is set to take place tomorrow. Best of luck to everyone. Thank you so much for watching West Coast Wrap tonight. We appreciate it. A reminder before we go, you can stay up to date on all the stories we're covering at westcoastwrap.com, and you can stream our shows right there on your smart TV by downloading the Fox Local app. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. Have a great one.